So I was up here a few weeks ago, and I told you I'd be back, and I'm back. We're going to talk about this, the building campaign, and we decided that we wanted to break this up into three different pieces. And so we're going to talk about a few bits of it today. We'll talk about some more of it next week, and then we'll talk about the rest of it the week after that. So this is episode 1. And so as a committee, we started meeting back in the summer. And we started asking those questions that you have to ask in a situation like this, like what are we doing, why are we doing it, and we need to pray about what we're doing and why we're doing it. And so we spent time doing that. And then we came up with a slogan, two-part slogan, because every campaign has to have a slogan, right? So we tried 2 different clickers this morning, and they both just laughed at me. Sometimes I feel like technology just mocks me. Anybody else? Just me? Okay, so I'm going to mime the clicker, and Reed's going to be my receiver on the other end, okay? All right, so we came up with this 2-part slogan. The first part, Stronger Together. I don't think I need to say a whole lot about that because it's fairly obvious, I think, to almost everybody, about what that means. But the idea is here that we know this is going to be a heavy lift, okay? But we also know that Jesus had some really great things to say about how we're supposed to handle heavy lifts, right? And so we understand that the only way this is going to happen is if God helps us do this, okay? But one of the things that really helps is if everybody participates in the lift, everybody in our fellowship, everybody in our family, according to whatever blessings that God has given us individually, that we're all willing to help with that lift. Then the second part, this improving our reach, this has to be the thread that really just runs through this whole thing. It needs to be the filter that we use to decide all these things that we do. Okay, so there's outreach. Those are things that we do outside the walls, and we have a number of ministries that fit in that category. And then we have in-reach. I don't know if that's a word. It is in-reach, the opposite of that. But that's the ministry to the people that are here in our building, here on our campus. And we have, I can't call it a unique opportunity. We have maybe unusual is the best word, an unusual opportunity here. I don't think that God placed us here for no good reason, okay? When you think about where we are out here on this 30-ish acres, stuck right in the middle between 4 cities, Hamilton, Fairfield, Colerain, Ross. Actually our name Fairfield is not completely accurate anymore. I'm guessing I bet a couple of nickels, if I took a poll here, I could find someone here that represents each of those 4 areas that's sitting here today. And so we're like perfectly positioned right in the middle of those 4 cities to actually have a regional ministry, okay, and not just a local ministry. So I don't think that was by accident. I think that God has orchestrated that. I don't know what that looks like in the future, but I think that there's just a tremendous amount of potential. So this idea of improving our reach, this needs to be about how we improve our ministry to the people that we are able to bring onto our campus. And what's unusual about that is that we have a lot of opportunities to bring people here that maybe other churches don't get a chance to do. So we have our Y soccer teams that are out here with the families. We've had some of the Ross teams that have been in here. And that gives us a chance to connect to people because they're coming to us, okay? Do you recognize what a blessing that is? Okay, that's actually a real blessing, okay? And there's some other exciting things that are going to be coming down the road. We hope that we can announce in a year or so, or some other opportunities like that. And so that's the other really big part of our slogan here is that we're doing all of this building thing. It has to be about improving that reach, okay, to reach the lost for Christ. That's really what it has to be all about. Miming my clicker. Okay, so we're going to talk a little bit about history, okay, because most of us here didn't live through all this history, and it's kind of interesting to know what brought us to this point, okay? So good place to start, all the way back in the beginning. And it's great to see Ruth here this morning because Ruth is our charter member who was here and represented this or lived through so much of this from the beginning. And just want to thank her for all that she and Ralph did back in the days to make this happen. So this is one point I'm not 100% clear on. I mean, the Fairfield Church of the Nazarene started out as a house church, I believe. I think they were meeting in people's homes. Oh, Sandy, you're there. Sandy, you're a charter member too, aren't you? Yes. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to ignore you. Okay. Oh, excellent. So was that in 1961, 62? Okay. Okay. So I'm not 100% sure about that, but I thought it was like 61 or 62 because the date that I got for the building dedication was in 1964. So that'd be Founders Hall. That's where Casa de Gracia is meeting right now. And so then over the course of the next few years, there were other improvements made to that campus so that by 1975, the footprint that you see now over there is what we achieved. And then in 1989, there was a mortgage burning ceremony. I missed that. Lisa and I were in Cameroon at that time. I understand it was probably a great party. And so that was the point where the church then was debt-free. By 1996, though, we had reached a point where we were running out of space, okay? And we looked at all the options, any way to expand on that property, and there was really no way because we were locked in there. And so we started looking for other opportunities, maybe other land that we could buy, and then click, read. And so then in 2000, then we purchased these 27 acres originally. Then the parcels was the house on the hill was purchased and donated to the church, which brought us to 30-ish acres. And so that was after a 3-year giving campaign to raise the money to buy the property. Then in 2007, this building was dedicated. That was after another 3-year building campaign of raising funds. And you know, when the architect designed all this, it didn't just stop at this building. So there was a much bigger plan that involved several other phases. And so if you notice how it's really nice and flat out there, that's because all that was graded, all the infrastructure was put down in order to do the next phases over in that direction. So then, so the idea was then to sell the property on Nilles and then turn that money around into a building out here. So in 2008, we put the Nilles campus on the market, and we had a number of interested parties, but everything kept falling through, okay? And so if you know your history, you understand that the economy was trashed at that point in time, okay? 2008, 2009. But I don't know, how many of you feel like the economy is a God-sized barrier? Does anybody feel that way? Because I don't, okay? I don't think that the economy really had anything to do with that, okay? And so the board decided we're gonna step back, okay? And we're gonna press pause here. We need to make sure that we're not missing something, okay? Because we recognize that if that was, you know, we hold on to our plans like this, right? And so it's like, yeah, we had a plan to come out here and build this other building, but if that's not what God wanted us to do at that moment, then we shouldn't do it, all right? And so that was enough to cause us to step back and say, all right, let's pause for a minute. And Pastor Dan McDowell said to the board, said, hey, let's take 30 days, let's pray about this, okay? So we did that, and we came back for the next board meeting, and it was really an amazing board meeting because there was just this consensus of spirit that everyone felt like we were being called to plant a Spanish-speaking congregation in that building. There were some other things that had happened. A student from Fairfield High School had approached us and met with Pastor Dan. I still don't know how that connection got made because the student didn't go to this church. But this student had this vision for creating this large clothing pantry, and the Fairfield schools were behind that, but they needed a place to host it. So they came and they asked us, and so we agreed. So that became Rethreads. And if you go over to the campus there, you'll notice that Rethreads occupies a pretty significant chunk of the bottom floor. And so there were things like that that were happening. It's like, okay, there's a lot of ministry to be done back there at that church in its location. And so we made the big decision to pull it off the market, okay? And switch our focus into building this Spanish-speaking congregation. And that took a lot of doing, okay? Without going into all the details. It took a lot of doing, took a lot of our focus. And so for the next 5 years or so, we were really focused on trying to get that up and running and the other ministries that we had there. So finally about 2016, then we came back to this idea, okay, now let's turn our focus back to here, what we need to do out here. And so we couldn't use the original architect, Pastor Dan Burris, Dan 2.0. He had an architect that he had worked with up at Vandalia, so that gentleman came down, he agreed to work with us. And so we went through that process. We couldn't use the old plans, that was not gonna work anymore for a variety of reasons. And so he came up with a new plan for us. And then Pastor Dan got called to his ministry in Columbus, chaplain in the state of Ohio, which is, which is amazing that he's doing that. And so we had a pastoral change. Pastor Darren came on board. So there's just going to be this natural, okay, let's set things aside here for a little bit until the new pastor comes and gets acclimated to what we're doing. And so he was just getting acclimated. And then, anybody remember 2020? Okay, like, yeah, 2020. So pandemic hit. The world paused, okay? It wasn't just us pressing pause. The world pressed pause, all right? And so then last June, the church board said, all right, so we're over that, thankfully, okay? So we need to press play. Let's get this back up and running again, okay? Because we've been stuck in this awkward spot, okay? You know, I mean, I don't know. I like being in the gym, so, you know, it doesn't bother me too much. But at the same time, there's a lot of things that we're hampered in as far as ministry goes because of the fact that we're using our gym as worship space and not as a gym, okay? So that was the decision we made. Here we are, 2024, so we're moving forward, okay? So that's the history. So, you know, for those of you that haven't been around for a long time, that explains how we got to where we are right now. Okay, click. All right, so one of the things that we did as a committee is we did a lot of brainstorming. So, you know, green light sessions, you ever heard that before? Green light sessions where you throw out ideas, and it doesn't matter how silly those ideas are. No one is allowed to red light your idea, okay? So so we had some green light sessions where you know, what do you see that we could accomplish ministry-wise with this new building? Because again, that's the thread that's got to run through this whole thing, okay? And so we came up with a lot of ideas. You can see some of them that I put up there on the screen. And, you know, doesn't mean everything that you see up there is going to happen. These were just ideas that we had. So our ask of you is to be dreaming along with us, okay? What are some ways, what are some ministries that we can start or can perform better with the addition of this space? Because if you think about it, I can't say most, but a lot of ministries that are really successful typically started because somebody in the congregation just had this nagging thing. It's like, do you ever get one of those splinters? You can't even see it, but you know it's there because you rub your finger over and it hurts. You know what I'm saying? It's super annoying, and it just nags at you, okay? So call it a holy splinter. So people get those holy splinters, like they just won't go away, and until eventually they come to the pastor and say, you know, this thing, I just feel like we should be doing this, okay? And it's that kind of passion, it's that kind of a champion that comes up for a cause that really makes for successful ministry, okay? We can't really count, no offense, we can't count on the pastor to come up with all the ideas for the vision. Was that offensive? Okay, good. All right. So what we're asking is that you dream with us as we go through this process, okay? And we'll be talking more about that in the future. Okay, so there's this mysterious committee that I've been talking about. So probably appropriate now to introduce to you who those committee people are. So here you see the names up here. Huge thanks to Denny Hatton for helping me with the historical timeline, because Denny lived through a lot of that, and so he helped me put that stuff together. Huge thanks to Olivia and Marcus for helping me with the presentation. Anything that you saw up here that was aesthetically pleasing is theirs, is due to them. Friday I had to make a bunch of changes, so anything that when you looked at it made your eyes bleed, that's mine. So I appreciate their help with that. And thanks to everybody in the committee that's been working hard and contributing their ideas to this. All right, so that's episode 1, all right? So please come back next week. We'll talk about episode 2, which is going to be talking a little bit more about the plans for what or at least where we are right now for plans for the future of this building.